Что-то стоит, да, наоборот, я понял просто, Слушай, ты наоборот. Ну да, да, по идее так. Ну да, на самом деле, да. Я уже понял. Значит, надо нет, значит, надо нет, значит, нет. Да, да, понял, да. Надо вот себе так говорить. Да, 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 да. Ух ты, какой, блин. свежий делаю фреш чесночный. Из чеснока будешь? Чесночный хранищий. Свежай. Свежайший гамаш. Ух ты, точно, слушай. Как ты так сказал, ты никого не. У меня же это есть. Шливан. Шливан Талибан, знаешь такой, да? Да, да. Слив срочно слив. Оптом. Отлично, дорогой. Будешь один круглый, отлично. Округление в лучшую сторону сделай, да. Ну, что там был делать? Наоборот, да, ну нет, наоборот, наоборот, что тебе надо? Да нет. Ну да. Ну да. Кто смотришь? Где смотришь? Да наоборот, наоборот, зачем? Я писал тогда все, я говорю, да, лампочки еще рассуждают. Да. Все хорошо. Да, еще да. Там еще вот их надо, там еще октаву и еще это есть. Наоборот. Ну, хорошо. Да, думаю, серьезно.
One of the things that we want to know as a songwriter, first of all, is what chords can I use? The higher art of songwriting is, well, why would I choose that chord over that chord? We're storytellers, and we want to choose our chords to help us tell the story like somebody would film score a movie. So let's just start with the first chord, C. Feel how there's no motion? Just feels like, and that's home. And that's a really important thing for songwriters to know. The three primary chords that you literally could just write songs for the rest of your life would be the one chord, which is C major, the 4 chord, which is F major, and the G chord, which is 5 major. Right? You hear that classic. So you can make an entire career out of just these 3 primary chords, 1, 4, and 5. They're really journey songs. They really are great storytelling songs, you can hear how this feels like, okay, there's no motion, we're home. Feel that motion, like something's happening here. Whatever you want to say as a lyricist there, notice that these chords are telling a story that you could offer a lyric to. And that's even brighter. You know, I'm gonna miss you when this is
Ну нет, Sberbank так думает, да, вот это есть.
we'll come back again some. Like, it's him.
Bet you wish you were back on Earth. Wow. That's amazing.
Все так просто, так все.
Hey everybody, my name is Adam Neely, and I'm here answering all of your questions about bass and music in general. So, let's get started. Juan Pablo Martinez writes, Level 7 reminds me of the true level bit in Rick and Morty. After listening to it, equal-tempered harmony sounds crooked.
Oh, everything's crooked. Reality is poison. I want to go back.
Yeah, I think that analogy is pretty good, and there are actually a couple other people who reference that Rick and Morty sketch, so I think it's fairly apt. 12-tone equal temperament can sound fairly crooked, but to be fair, you have to have a very high IQ to understand jazz level 7. The harmony is extremely subtle, and without a solid grasp on extended just intonation, most of the music will go completely over a typical listener's head. Sean Barnett writes, what are 6/9 chords? Okay, let's finally come to this. We're talking about 6/9 chords. 69 chords. Let's go. So the most basic way of adding color to a basic 3-note triad, like C major, one that's built in thirds, is to simply stack another third on top of the basic triad, creating a 7th chord. This C major 7 chord, and other 7th chords like it, form the basic harmonic vocabulary of jazz music. But there's a pretty big problem with them. Can you hear it? Yeah, it's this guy. It's that really intense rub between the B and the C, which doesn't create a restful feeling when we end up on the C chord. You see, in the key of C, we kind of want our C chord to feel restful. It's home. It's the tonic chord. It's the point of resolution. Almost philosophically, everything points to a C chord which wants to feel relaxed. Adding that 7th in there might create a nice and colorful chord, but it won't feel as relaxed as the basic triad. So what do? Well, a lot of musicians have substituted that 7th for the 6th degree of this scale. This 6th degree of the scale creates a major second dissonance up against the G of the C major chord, which is a lot less spicy than the minor second dissonance of the B up against the root of the scale. Chord progressions which end on the C6 chord end up feeling really nice and relaxed. Doesn't feel like we need to go anywhere in particular, which is exactly the point of a tonic chord. Now where can we go from here? Well, the C6 chord sounds relaxed, but it might not feel as colorful as the C major 7. So to get some more color in there, a lot of musicians started adding the 9th degree up from the scale, giving us the glorious, the one and only 6/9 chord. One of the nice things about the 6/9 chord is that you can employ this particular kind of voicing in the piano right hand. You can start with the 9th degree of the scale, stack down a perfect 4th to the 6th degree, down another perfect 4th to the 3rd degree, to create this nice quartal voicing. Quartal voicings have this very particular quality to them. If you actually just move 4ths around in a given key like this, there's like this feeling of the chord being almost like resolved and unresolved at the same time. It's a fun rainy day activity just to move this right hand shape around in C major. In fact, if you just like lightly play the piano, it's like, you know, raindrops, rainy day, fun stuff. You can also have minor 6/9 chords. So if you have a 5/7 chord in the key of C minor, you could resolve that to a C minor 6/9. Why would you want to resolve it there versus a C minor 7? Well, you can hear they're very different in quality. This feels fairly resolved. It doesn't really want to go anywhere else besides where it is. We know we are in C minor. Basically, the point is that whether you're in a major key or a minor key, that seventh of the chord creates color, but it also feels unrestful. By substituting the seventh of the chord with a sixth, and also adding the ninth, you've created a tonic chord that's both restful as well as colorful. And that, I think, is pretty neat. Emerson Chavez writes, "Why did this appear in my feed? I don't even like jazz." You might not like jazz, but YouTube's recommendation algorithm certainly does, so...
Research shows that our algorithms love jazz.
Conjular Production writes, "Hey Adam, are the colors you use to mark up different notes in the scale the colors you see for those pitches?" So yeah, in recent videos I have been coordinating my synesthetic response to different examples. So for me, the letter A, and therefore the idea of the musical note A, is red. B is black or blue, C is yellow, D is kind of a teal, green, blue situation, E is purple, F is green, G is brown. Now what I was finding is I wanted to add a little bit more color to my videos, just to make them more exciting and fun for the kids. The problem was, the color couldn't be arbitrary. Like for me, I put so many hours into editing my videos to make sure that they look right, and this looks so wrong to me. This looks terrible. Ugh. This looks so much better. So what that means is that for me to get my videos to look right, I have to draw on my synesthetic responses. And the problem is that synesthetic responses differ quite wildly from individual to individual. What this means is that if you have synesthesia, I'm so sorry for this. This looks and feels completely wrong to you probably, but because that is my video and these are my reactions, this is how I'm going to edit it, so deal with it. Luigi Vecchio writes, "Could anyone name me any jazz pianists from our days that would be considered analog as far as influence on young students to Mark Juliana, Nate Smith, or Ari Honig as drum players? I found these three very inspiring." Yeah, so of course one name that I definitely want to mention is Corey Henry, an amazing keyboard player and organ player who's worked with Snarky Puppy and his own group, the Funk Apostles. And I think one of the reasons why he's so influential is, of course, his incredibly perhaps overrated, but in some ways maybe not overrated, solo on Snarky Puppy's Lingus. I think for a young generation of musicians, seeing Corey Henry effortlessly blend all of those chord substitutions from gospel traditions as well as jazz fusion traditions in that video is just incredibly influential. I think that it is one of the most influential solos in jazz of the past 20 or 30 years. Part of the reason why that solo was so influential, of course, I think is because...
Завидуйте, позавидовал. Дальше что? Для чего? Кому это нахер? Все забыли, да, понимаешь? Ну, то есть кому это надо? Да, понимаешь? Ну, наоборот, да, ну, хорошо, проехал. Ну, нет, о себе я не так думаю, что вот это надо тогда, вот они про это и думали себе тогда, да. Что настоящий? Так он тебя понял уже, да, вот это и говорит, да. Да нет, ну нам, да. Ну вот это он имел в виду вот о себе, да нам, да, вот это и есть.
The visual nature of it. In a YouTube video, you can see him playing and the band's reactions to it. You can see improvisation at a high level, and I think for a lot of people that was their first introduction to what that kind of improvisation is. And honestly, it's pretty amazing. Beyond Corey Henry, though, I think Robert Glasper has had an enormous amount of influence on young jazz pianists. Monstrously good jazz pianist. I love his trio work with the bass player Derek Hodge and Chris Dave on drums. But of course, he's brought a lot of hip-hop elements into jazz music, and also vice versa. He's brought jazz into hip-hop. He's worked with people like Kendrick Lamar. His particular approach to voicing and creating grooves is incredibly influential. You hear it everywhere, and honestly, I think that you wouldn't even have the genres of like lo-fi hip-hop or lo-fi jazz without the playing of Robert Glasper. Now beyond Robert Glasper, I might say Tigran Hamasyan, who's an amazing Armenian jazz pianist who's brought a lot of Armenian folk music into jazz, but also has done it in a way that like is very, shall we say, gent metal-y. He's influenced a lot of progressive metal musicians, like Animals as Leaders, especially his album Mockroot. That is a very jazz album, if there ever was one. Then you have keyboard players that take like the Robert Glasper thing to the next level. People like Anomaly, who is a French-Canadian producer who has like these crazy intricate arrangements with lots of patch changes, interesting ideas about how to take electronic music production and combine it with the jazz vocabulary. Then you have people like the young French pianist Domi de Gaulle, who's really into this like grungy DIY fusion thing. She's worked with Lewis Cole, and she has this great project with young drummer J.D. Beck. Anyway, I just wanted to shout out some of these names who I feel like are especially influential on modern jazz piano playing, or who I feel will be influential in a couple years. Lasalika writes, at 219, the A7 sharp 9 chord has a B sharp as ninth and not a C natural, because the ninth of an A chord is B natural, and here ninth sharp, so B natural becomes B sharp. Great video. So yeah, in my last video I wrote an A7 sharp 9 like this.
Да, ну,
A,
как угодно.
C
Хорошо,
sharp,
все наоборот.
G,
Надо
C
ценить
natural.
женскую
And
натуру,
yeah.
женскую индивидуальность, то есть человеческие там качества, черты.